All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Stephen Jackson with Imprintables Warehouse, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to spend a little bit of it with me and go over some more CorelDraw training, Session 2, More Basics. It's a continuation on from the webinar that we did in January and a continuing series that we're going to do this year to try to build up your skills and get into more and more complex projects as we go along. I do apologize again to everyone out there. I had the one in February and had to cancel it. I was ill, and there was a video that we put up as kind of to help you out in the meantime, show you some basics of opening up a page and starting a document in Corel. So if you didn't get that or trying to find it, let us know, and we'll probably put it up with the blog this time as well, so that after this webinar, when it's posted online, you can go see that. I've got a couple of poll questions this time that we're going to get out. And I've got I can hear it here. I want to make sure, says, how's the audio? Jody, are you seeing that?
Yes.
Is the audio okay on your end?
Yes, I actually sent it to the audience just to get...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm not used to seeing anything in the chat session there.
It's okay.
Okay.
And
so
I'll introduce myself. I'm sorry, Stephen. I'm Jody, since I'm just kind of speaking here. I'm Stephen's behind-the-scenes person, so if you have anything you'd like to chat or any problems, you can put it in the chat box, and we'll try to meet your requests.
Jody helps me out with the poll questions and in the chat session at the end, and as always, she helps me out with everything else to make sure that these things go down the way they should. So thank you, Jody. Appreciate that.
Yes, thank you for coming, Stephen.
Oh, my pleasure. We've got the first poll question up here. It says, did you attend session 1? Just select yes or no, and that should be a pretty quick one. I'm guessing most of you, well, listen to us kind of chatter here, have already filled it out. Okay, it looks like, what, 59%?
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming back, and those of you here for the first time, I suspect you may have watched the video online, so thank you for that as well. We've got a second question coming up here.
And do you use CAD cut materials?
CAD cut materials, heat transfer, or sign products. I'm not just talking, and not a specific brand or anything like that, but we're looking to get some numbers from the people who are attending here using Corel that are using CAD cut materials in general.
Okay, so it looks like everyone's voted. Yep, 81%.
We're fast today.
Mm-hmm.
81%, okay. So that 19%, let me know, and I'll help you out. Get some CAD cut materials, right? Get you started. So we've got one more poll question here.
And do you use print cut materials?
This would be on a, say, like a Mimaki Muto or a Roland Versacam or something similar, or the BN20, which is very popular right now. Great product. So this is pretty easy yes or no questions today, because I know everybody's looking forward to getting into the content.
Looks like everyone's voted, or almost everyone. So we have a lot of attendees who don't use print cut materials right now.
Okay. Pretty close to 50%. That's good data for us. I appreciate that, everybody. So that'll close out the poll questions for today. Like we said, this is session 2, more of the basics. So we are going to be going through some of the basic tools and controls within CorelDraw. Towards the end of it, we're going to take some of the things that you've learned today and use that in an actual project. So I've got a graphic in there, and we're going to use the tools to redraw it. So let's get into this a little bit, see if I can get the next one up. What I want to go over today for everybody is the shape tools, and that would include rectangle, the ellipse, the polygon, those basic tools that are in the toolbox on the left-hand side of Corel. So I'm going to jump over to that. I'm managing a couple of screens here, so I apologize for any delays in it. Okay, so we've got the shape tools, and the shape tools consist of these guys over here. We've got the rectangle tool, I've got the ellipse tool, and I've got the polygon tool. And what I want to show you with these is how to use each one of them and some of the features with each one of them, so that you can kind of learn how to make better control of them. So I've got my screens finally set here. So the rectangle tool, there's a little triangle down in the bottom corner of it here. Well, when we hover over it, it tells us the rectangle tool, and it also tells us the shortcut key, F6 for that, so I could get to that a little bit quicker. And anybody who's watched any of my videos or the webinars knows I love shortcut tools. So very easy, fast way to speed up your process. If I hover over that little triangle and I kind of press on it, it'll pop up and it tells me a rectangle or a 3-point rectangle. So let's go over the rectangle first. When we click on that, now I can see my tool, my cursor in there has the rectangle and the crosshairs for it. So if I left click and drag, I draw out a rectangle. And I can make it taller or wider or however I want it to be on there. So that's one way of getting the rectangle on there. And then once it's drawn, I have all my control tools where I've got the corner. Say I want to grab the corner and drag it out or bring it in a little bit, or take my side here and drag it out. If I hold the shift key while I'm dragging one of those, it'll do both sides at the same time. So I can work it that way. Or if I take a corner of it and I hold down the shift key, and you see it turns into a different icon. Over here, it's just up and down. And then over here, let's zoom in on that a little bit. Maybe you can see it better. So right here, it's up and down. And then over here, when I get over that guy, if I'm holding the shift key, it turns to a 4-way on the arrows there. So let's zoom out a little bit so you can see what that does. What that does is it brings everything out the same, proportionally. So you've got a couple tools within it right there. Along with that, let's take a look at our corners. If I go to my shape tool, well, it's still a rectangle. This is still a shape. I haven't converted it to curves. To convert it to a curves, I would go up there, and then it would allow it to be modified. It says using the shape tools, but what we mean by that is this tool right here, the shape tool, and we'll convert it to curves real quick so you can see. And now when I go to my shape tool for it and click on it, each one of these nodes is individual. So I could grab that, move it around in it. It's now just a bunch of nodes. It's no longer a rectangular shape. So let's take it back 3 steps. I hit Control-Z 3 times. When I'm in the shape tool and it hasn't been converted to curves, that button right there, if I take my corner and I've got it set to round right now up here, and I start to drag it in, you can see it rounds out the corners for me. If I had converted it to curves first, it wouldn't have this functionality. So while we have an object that is still a shape, we have a lot of controls over it, such as these. If I change it over here to the scallop corner, you'll see that all the corners turn to a scallop. And I can control those individually. Right here is a lock tool, and I've got it set to edit the corners together. And I could set the amount on there. So say I want a 0.25 on that scallop corner, and I hit enter. All of them are at 1/4 of an inch on the scallop corner. We've also got the chamfer. So you can see that I can convert them like that and drag it in and keep it proportional however I want it. Maybe I want to try to make this more like a stop sign, so I'll bring it in a little bit. There we go. It's a little bit more proportional. So we've got these tools up here to give it rounded corners, scallop corners, or chamfered, and we can control them individually. So if I unlock this, maybe this guy here I want 0.25, and you'll see it changes that one corner right there. And now if I lock them after I did that, you'll see that it controls all of them together. So let's make this 0.75, and it applied it to that one, but it's a little uneven because it was uneven before. So you can see how that changed there. So that's a little bit on those, and then we also have this right here that's relative corner scaling. As it is right now with the relative corner scaling selected, what will happen is if I grab the nodes here, let me zoom in a little bit, and I hold shift, and remember how we get those little arrows that show all the directions, and I drag them in, it's keeping everything relative on the size of that corner, the angle and everything. If I drag it back out and I uncheck the relative corner scaling, you'll see that when I bring it in, it's not keeping them proportional anymore, and those corners kind of took over from it because it didn't change the sizing in here on it. So I'll hit Control-Z, go back to my relative corner scaling, and you can see like this is 0.797, and as I drag it in, it's changing that whole size and maintaining it relative to the rest of the object. So you've got a lot of individual controls right up here, and I can flip it horizontally or mirror it vertically and change it all around. We can move this object quite a bit. So let's delete that guy and go back to the basics of the rectangle tool again. So when I've got the rectangle tool selected and I've got my rectangle right here, if I hold down my shift key, you can see that it's keeping the sides proportional and it's constraining them to a sorts. If I didn't have the shift key held down and I did it, it just takes from that corner where I started and draws it out. So when we do this, I'll select that guy and delete it, and I hold the shift key, it keeps them going from the center out. Now, as I do this, if I hold down the control as well, it's keeping it perfectly in proportion all the sides, and it makes it a perfect square on there. So I can hold Shift and Control together and do that, and it draws from the center. Or if I held Control and just draw it, it keeps it in that perfect proportion all the way across, a nice perfect square, even sides all the way around, but it draws it from the corner. So Shift allows us to go from the center out, and Control keeps everything in perfect proportions for us. So a couple more things there. So let's delete these guys. And now, as I told you before, that little triangle right here underneath the rectangle tool, when I dropped it down, I can do a 3-point rectangle. So far, all of my rectangles have been from side to side or top to bottom. What this one allows me to do is left-click and drag, let go, and I can draw a rectangle or square that is at an angle now. And that's my finished product. Again, if I do this left-click and drag with the Shift held down, now it's maintaining it proportional from the center out. And, oops, hold down the Shift and hit my final one. So you have to left-click, drag, left-click, drag while I'm holding the Shift if I want to keep it proportional. When I let go, now it makes it pop out there, and I left-click again to finish it. So you can see you can get these angled rectangles and squares as well. If I'd done this with the Control and Shift held down, left-click, drag, you can see it's a perfect square, and it's kept everything proportional. So all the controls are the same with the Shift and Control on each one of these, but the 3-point allows me to do a square at an angle or a skew to it to begin with, whereas the regular rectangle tool just does it straight across for me. So that's the rectangle tool. We'll set it back to its regular one. Next is the ellipse. So let's try the ellipse tool. And again with this one, I can draw from a left corner and draw it out, or if I hold Shift, it goes from the center out, and that can be uneven on there. Or if I hold Control, it makes it perfectly even all the way across, or Shift and Control, and this one here is going to draw from the center out. So there's a couple different things we can do right there. Let's get rid of these guys. And then we have a 3-point ellipse right here. Again, left-click, drag, similar to the rectangle one, click there, and then I can draw out from it. So you can see you can control it this way. If I'd wanted to go the other way, I would have drawn from top to bottom and then dragged it out. So you can see you can maintain and get some angles on it. I can do it at an angle this way, and however I want to draw that one in there. When we've got, let's get rid of these guys, and the Shift and Control work along with that one. All the shaping tools are the same with that. When we've got the ellipse tool here, let's draw ourselves out a circle. And I'm going to draw a couple circles here. This one here, though, I'm going to go into that shape tool now. So in the shape tool on this one now, if I take it and go and drag that point out, it makes kind of like a pie chart in there. So I can have an angle that way or an angle this way, and it removes some of what we have in there. So I can maybe drag this guy out a little bit more, or I can drag it all the way around, and then it creates that pie in there. I can click on this once more, and you can see it can turn now, and you can do quite a bit with these in here. So we'll make something real quick here that everybody should recognize. We'll take a little right-click to make a copy of that, and now we've got Pac-Man on here. So you can see very quickly with working with the shape tool, I can take a couple objects and create something out of it. So working with the shape tool on the circle, or ellipse tool, and then using the node edit, I can make that pie chart or a wedge or however I want to do it. Kind of fun. Next one on down the line is the Polygon tool. I like this one quite a bit here. The Polygon tool, when you open it up, it creates a spot up here, and I can tell it how many sides I want on the polygon. So right now it's set at 5. Let's just draw that out, and if I hold Shift and Control, it's in proportion. Shift, it just does side to side and top to bottom. But Control, it takes it from the center and keeps it in proportion. So let's move this down to the center of the screen a little bit. Now when we're working with this one here on the simple Polygon tool, if I go to my Shape or Edit tool, as a lot of people call it as well, and I grab this one node here and drag it in, you'll see that it's dragging all of the nodes. If I hold Shift or Control, it maintains it in proportion to them, so it'll go in and out. If I let go of the Control, I can skew this if I wanted to. So I might take that, and I'll grab this here, and I'll drag those ones out. Now, a very neat thing about this is if I add some nodes on here, and I can simply add a node right here by just double-clicking, and now you notice it added the node in the same exact spot all the way around. So I can drag this out and maybe add a node here and drag this one in, and we can get some very funky shapes with this that go throughout the entire object. So you can quickly edit and change around a shape to whatever you desire by using the nodes, and it keeps everything in proportion, keeps everything the same on each one of those legs of the object. Now this is no longer a straight polygon anymore, it's more of an object, but if we go back to it and see the 5 here and bump it up, you can see it still is an object. I haven't converted it to curves, so I can add more to it or subtract from it if I want to. And then I could go back and edit each one of those nodes across there until I convert it to curves, and then it's an object and they're not linked together anymore. So you can do quite a bit with those in there. So let's delete this guy. We'll come back over to it, and this time I'm going to jump into the submenu of it by clicking on that little triangle down the corner, and we've got the star tool. Let's take the star, and this one maintains everything in proportion, but it draws it like a star. So it's similar to the other polygon tool, but it's already kind of drawn it into a star in the center there. Same thing applies with it. If I grab a point in it, it applies it across the whole object. I can add another point in here. Oops. I'm sorry, on this one you can't add the point, I forgot. So this one maintains it there as a star until we go and convert it to curves. And I can also increase the number of points on it like I did before. And this right here is the sharpness of the corners of the complexity of the star. So we can see it's coming in towards the center with this, or we can bring it further out and adjust it from there however we want. So there's quite a bit you can do from this one as well. So that star has nothing in the center. If I come on down to the next one in there, the complex star, it draws stars that have intersecting sides. So on this one, when I draw it out, you'll see that it was 9 points and they have intersecting sides. Let's do control to keep it proportional. And then let's grab some of those nodes in this one, and you can see you can make some very funky objects with this just by adjusting where those nodes are. So there's quite a bit you can do with the different shaping tools. And it's important to play around with each one of them, get a feel for what you want from them, what you can and can't do with it, and learn the different shift and control options with it to make it proportional or go from the center out, or however you want to work with that. And the ellipse tool, remember we can do get kind of the pie chart kind of effect by once we've drawn it. We'll go into the node tool and then grab the point wherever we have it here, this point right there. And then we can draw it out or go the opposite way where we've got a wedge. Wrong way. Go this way. Back all the way. And you can adjust it however you want there. So let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation, make sure I hit everything on that. So we talked about the rectangle tool and some of the corner rounding, how to chamfer or scallop it, or work with different options there, rounding. The scaling to maintain it proportional with all those. Converting it to curves. Once you've converted to curves, you can no longer control those together. They're individual points on it. And the shift and control functions, which apply to all the different shape tools in here. On the ellipse tool, the node edit, making a pie chart or a wedge out of it. And then the polygon, you can do tons and tons of controls with this as you get the different nodes in there, and they're grouped together or locked together so they work together like that. And then all the new nodes that you add to it apply to all the different sides. So let's take a look at some of the shaping functions now. I've got these objects that we played with. We'll delete that and zoom out a little bit. Let's make a couple squares, and I want to show you some of the different tools you can do with shaping on this. We created basic shapes here, but now I want to take a couple individual shapes and work with the different tools on that. So we'll make one red, and we'll make one blue, and I don't want an outline on either one of them, so I'll remove that. Now, once I've got two different objects selected, and they don't have to be shapes, they can be curves as well, it doesn't matter on that, but as long as I have two objects, and you can see down here it says two objects selected on layer 1, I've got all these different tools up here, my weld and trim, intersect, and all these different ones. You can also get to them by arrange and shaping, and they're all in there. So once I've got these two selected, I can work with the different tools in here. So we'll take the red one first, because it does matter on a lot of these which ones you select first and which one you select second. And then I'll grab the blue one, and I'm going to do weld. And when I do weld this time, it takes from the last one we selected and applies it across. So now that's one object right there. Okay, so let's Control Z that a little bit. Now let's select the blue and then into the red, and we'll do a weld function on that. You can see the last one we selected, that applies across. So it basically welded those two together and removed the interior portion. If I look at this in wireframe, in View, Wireframe, I've created a shortcut key. In the last webinar we talked about how to create custom shortcut keys. You can see in wireframe these two together, and when I apply the weld to it, how it removes that intersecting portion in there. Now if I'd had even more objects on there, let's go back one and we'll add a couple more squares just for this to show you real quick. If I were to take all of these and weld them, it will do the same. It just goes and removes all the intersecting lines, and it's just one shape around it. So let's go back to Enhanced, and I'll get rid of these two. So that's the weld portion. So let's select the blue and then the red, and this time we're going to do this one, the second one down the line, which is Trim. It cuts out a portion of an object by using the shape of another object. When we click on this one, you can see that this cut out of the second one here, a nice little square of the portion that was overlapping in there. If I select the red and then the blue, go to Trim, it does it the opposite way. So it's trimming into the second one or the last one that's selected. So you can see that there. So let's look at this in wireframe. And we'll do the trim, and you can see how it cuts it out, that portion there. So it's kind of like a cookie cutter that it's stamping it out of there. And remember, it always goes by the last one selected there. So let's do the blue this time and into the red. And this next one down here is intersect. It creates an object from the area where the two or more objects overlap. They have a little interactive menu that pops out and kind of shows you a little bit about it whenever you select one of these here. So on this one, we click it. It created an object in there. You can see the nodes that are around it, and if I move this to the side, you'll see it created that red one. So let's do blue, then red, intersect, and that creates a red one. Red, then blue, and intersect, and this one will be blue. It goes by the properties of the last object selected. So it's very important. A lot of people will get in a rush with these types of things, working with the shaping tools, and they'll grab it and just draw around it. And when they do the intersect, well, which one did it go with? I drag it aside, it went with the blue. If I go from the opposite direction and do the intersect, again it does the blue. So by just selecting around both of them, it doesn't give an order for which way it does, and I haven't quite figured out what Corel defaults on that. But if you want to control which way it goes, so I'm going, say, I want to do the blue into the reds because I want this portion here to be the red, and select now the last one selected, my red in there, it applied it to it. So if you want to go that way and want to control the end product a little bit more, it's important to do the correct order of selecting the different objects to be able to get the results that you desire. So let's do this one blue into red, and we've done weld, we've done trim, we've done intersect, and this one simplify. It trims the overlapping areas. And when we do this one and we're finished, you can see it trimmed out that portion in there. So let's put that back, red to blue, and we're going to do the simplify. And now it trimmed that out, put that back, and blue to red, and do the simplify. And again, it still did that. So it's kind of chomping into it like a cookie cutter. A lot of these seem very similar in the way they work. Let's add another object into this so you can see this one a little bit differently. We'll put a circle down in here. And now when we select this, we'll go through all three of them and do the simplify. And you can see that it made everything its own object based on where they were layered on top of each other. So this is like a couple of cookie cutters stacked up and going down through and punching through it. For a lot of your simpler graphics, this is a great way to set them up for CAD cutting. And when I asked you in the beginning of the webinar, the poll question of who's out there doing CAD cutting, This is a great tool for those of you that are doing it where you've got overlapping objects and you might be overlapping your graphics or your different layers of CAD-cut vinyl, be it heat transfer or sign vinyl, and you don't want to have layer on top of layer on top of layer. This design would have been 3 layers thick if we'd done it, cut the yellow by itself, cut the red by itself, and blue by itself. And right in the middle, it would have been pretty thick right there. But by selecting all 3 and using the Simplify tool, it kind of punches on down through, and now I've only got the blue, red, and yellow, and each one is only a layer thick. Now I could work with it to kind of give it a little bit of an overlap to do a trap or choke, or and kind of make it so that I'm not having these critical areas where I'm lining up exactly, and I've got a little overlap to play with. And that would be pretty easy with this design right here by just taking the yellow circle and dragging it out just a little bit. And now that one, if we look at it in wireframe, we can see that it's going over the top of the 2, and maybe this red square, we take this side here and draw it up a little bit so that it's overlapping, however we wanted to do it. But that's up to you when you're doing your designs. The Simplify tool is very nice and being able to punch down through on it and make a product that's just 1, 2, 3. It's punched them all out. Okay, so let's move this guy to the side for right now and go back to our enhanced view. So now we'll take the blue and go to the red, and this one here is front minus back, and then right next to it is back minus front. So front minus back, it takes away that back portion right there. So the front minus the back, but it also deleted that portion there. So before, when we did this and we did, say, the trim tool, and that trimmed it out, I need to change the way I select it. I'd need to go red, oops, I dragged it as I did that into blue, and do my trim. And that would trim that portion out, or blue into red and do trim, and it trimmed that section out, and then I would delete that. But now, if I take this, let me make sure I got this right. Now if I take this here and do front back, it not only removes that portion there, but it also deletes the object. So if I'm using that as I just need to kind of cookie cutter this out and I don't need that portion that's left right there, it speeds up the process a little bit for me. The next one, right next to it there, is back minus front. This one removes the front portion and then deletes what was there. So again, this is a handy tool. We could have used the trim portion up above and then deleted the piece afterwards, but this kind of automates the process for us by doing that trim function for us and then deleting the portion that we don't want anymore. Okay. Now I'm going to put all 3 objects back. For those of you that do the print cut graphics and have watched any of my video tutorials for print cut graphics, you'll definitely recognize this one. I call it the 3-step method for setting up a cut line. It's very simple to work with, and it's one of your shaping tools. This one, instead of just welding these 3, I could take the whole thing here and hit Control-C and Control-V, and then weld that one piece that's on there, give it no fill on it, and give it an outline, and then I've created a line that goes around it that could be my cut for the entire print graphic. That's quite a few steps to do, and Corel's made it pretty simple for us so that we don't have to worry about that. I can select all the objects here. That would be my first step in the 3-step. And as long as they are 3 objects, they're not grouped together. If they were grouped together, we can still do it, but there's a couple more menus you got to go through. It's just easier if they're ungrouped. We come on down to the end here, create a boundary, and that creates a boundary that surrounds the objects. Let me go back one so you guys can see the little menu that pops out. It says creates a new object that surrounds the selected objects. So these are the selected objects, and it's going to create that boundary around them. If I drag that to the side, you see that's exactly what I'd created before by copying, pasting, welding, giving it no fill, and then giving it an outline. Quite a few steps in there. What was that, 5 or 6, somewhere around there, when I can do it with just a single button click at that point using the Create Boundary tool. Very powerful tool, can do quite a bit for us. I'll put it back. And for print and cut graphics, I would simply come over and right-click on my cut contour, and now I'm ready to rock and roll by printing it and cutting it out with whatever device I'm working with. So another one of the shape tools that you've got in there. Last but not least on the shape tools is the Align and Distribute that pops up here on the end. This one gives a secondary menu that opens up. Where'd that guy go to? I've got multiple screens open, so I think it popped it up behind one of these others. All right. Oh, it opened up in the Docker here because I had it over in the Docker. I apologize. So my align and distribute here, I can tell it I want to distribute these guys. Say I want to do everything distribute to the right. So when we do that, it's even distribution to the right. Or if I align them to the right, now everything's aligned to the right in between them. So you can use some quick keys here. We'll hit Control-Z to put that back, to align and distribute them however you want. And then it's got some controls on here for active objects with the selection or into the page edge and a whole bunch of other options. Play around with this one. But what I like best about these, I can get to them also here by arrange and align and distribute. And on here it has all the shortcut keys. So I use these quite a bit. So if I wanted to align all these to the right, I simply press R, or to the top T. So let's do some of those. So if I hit R, now they're all right along the edge to the right. And if I hit T, now they're all to the top, or B drops them to the bottom. Now it looks like the blue's gone away, but it's actually covered up by this red. And if I take the red and make it a little bit smaller, you can see this better. So we'll do top on there, or right, and however I want to align them. And that's also with an E. So I can click on this one and go to the bottom. Now they're all to the bottom, and it gives me a guideline for the whole group there. So you can see quite a few tools within there and quite a bit of power that you can create with it by just simply using the different shaping tools that are up above. So what we've done so far is we've worked with the different shape tools, the rectangle, the ellipse, and the complex, well, not complex star, it's just the polygon tool would be the main tool in that option. And then there's some sub-menus, and under the rectangle it has the 3-point rectangle, the 3-point ellipse for the ellipse tool, and so on and so forth. And then we've also talked about the keys to work within that, say using the shift and control functions, and then use the welding tools. So we're going to break this down for a second, and Jody, I'm going to need your help here. And I think we've got a couple questions that have come up.
Yes.
I'd like to hit a couple of those.
Yeah, let's do that. So Kelly was wondering, I think I did send you this question, when I draw a shape, the inside of the shape fills in with black. How can I make a line like you have showing?
Okay, that would be with whatever object properties you've done before. So when I do this one here, it's got on my object properties for fill, there was no fill. So if I open up this Docker and have that set to no fill as my default for the properties, on the subsequent one it should do it. So let's try, and we'll do a fill there, and now when I do another one, I've got this set so the default for it is right here. I believe that's under customization, and you can get into there. Open up on another screen for me. You can get into, I'd have to dig into which toolbox item it is. Let's see. Rectangle tool. Let's take that one down. I'm going to have to find where the default menu is for that, and I will find that for you and get back to you on that, and maybe we'll even make a separate video for you, Kelly, so that we can show you exactly where that is. I don't remember right where it is off the top of my head, so I'd like to kind of find that for you first.
Okay, perfect. And then sometimes when trying to trim one object through another, it will not work. The appearance stays the same. How do I make it work? This usually is with someone else's art and not with something that I create.
That can be a number of different things. If you're trying to trim one object through another, it could be that it's not a closed object on one of them. It could be that they're separate layers. When you get into especially graphics that come from somebody else, it's always, you know, did they do it correctly? Is it set up correctly? As we see in here on my object manager, I've got in layer 1, I've got all these different things, and that's on a secondary page right there, this group of 37 objects. Oh, I'm sorry, that's these guys up here, the Imprintables Warehouse one. These different ones here, they may have created a separate layer on that page and have that one locked. So if they've gone in there and created another layer, you might have to come up here and edit across layers. If you don't have it edit across layers and that one is separate from the current layer that you're working on, then it would not allow you to be able to trim in between all of them. So what I would recommend is go to the Object Manager and take a look and see where everything is in there. And you can take, let's see if we can create another layer within here. We'll create a new layer and we'll call this Edit Layer. And on this one, they may have created it so that you can't change anything. So right there, we'll make this one locked, and we'll go to our edit layer here. And on our edit layer, we'll draw a couple rectangles. And now if I take all this and I want to do the trim function, you'll see that it does nothing to that one below it because that one was not editable. But as soon as I make it editable, and I've got edit across layers right here, and I go to my trim function, now it changes things drastically across there. And it didn't quite hit this guy. I'd have to, maybe I didn't have that fully selected, or where they're at in the layer. Let's move that guy. Oh, this one's a curve now. And we can even move this one up to the other layer if I wanted to, and work a trim on that. And now, because that's in the same layer, it's editable across it. So my suspicion with that particular graphic that you're asking about is it has something to do with the layers and how the person created it. And you can even take everything that's within the other layer and bring it up so that you're working within the same layer across it. So take a look at that graphic, and you can even shoot it to me in an email, and I'll take a look at it as well and see if that is the issue at hand and what we can do to fix it.
And then a couple with just like a quick review again on adding points to stars in that Polygon section that you...
Okay. Okay. So in the Polygon section that we had, we'll go on back down here, and we'll go to, not the star tool, but we'll do a polygon. I'll draw this guy out. When we go to the node tool, the shape tool right here, I can drag the node in it. It keeps everything proportional. And then to add a node onto it, I simply double-click right on the line. Double-click on the line. And now I can drag those nodes across. So that's all I did was just double-click on the line. I can add one there and bring it out or bring it in. And we'll add another one here. Yeah, I mean, you can do some really funky stuff with these guys. Make it something crazy looking like that, like some sort of star. So it's simply adding the node in there, and I can even click on that line, and then I've got some more tools up here, like right here, add nodes. And if I click on that, it's added nodes in there. I just find it easier to double-click on the line. And I can also remove that node by double-clicking on it, double-clicking on this one, and so on and so forth all the way on through. So we can kind of take it back to almost its original form by doing that. Hopefully that answered the question for him.
And
Any
that's
other
all.
questions at this
No,
time?
it looks like that's all we have so far.
Okay. So the next part of the project that we're going to do is we're going to redraw the monkey. Let's double check that we've got everything from the notes here. Shaping functions. We went through all these guys here, and now we're going to do monkey time. So we'll go back to our graphic. Now, if I had a customer supplied graphic like this one here, and when I go to my enhanced view, oops, wrong screen, Steve. If I go to my wireframe view, I can see that the graphic that they provided is this one here, and this is a vector that I played around with earlier. And if I had the graphic in a good enough format already, I might be able to trace this guy. So let's go back to enhanced, and it's locked right now, so I'll unlock it. And I can see by clicking on it, it shows me a bitmap, and it's 200 by 200 dpi, or pixels per inch. So on this one, I might be able to get some pretty good results from using the Corel trace functions. Now there's a couple different ones. If I come up and it is a bitmap, I've got trace bitmap available to me here. And I can drop that down. There's quick trace, there's a center line trace, an outline trace. And each one of these has their own different menus in there. But I'll try it out real quick with a quick trace. When we click on that, give it a couple seconds, and it didn't do too bad. Now, if this had been a low resolution bitmap, I might not have gotten acceptable results. So we'll convert it to a bitmap and try this again. It opened up on a separate screen here. And we'll take it to something fairly low resolution, like 72. And still, that one's not horrible. Let's try a trace bitmap on that, just a quick trace. And we can see it's losing some of what it had before in the graphic. This one has two different colors right there, and it's no longer two different colors across there. It's blending it together. So it's very much dependent on the graphic that we're getting. This one's a pretty easy one to work with, but I just wanted to show you that if we've got a decent graphic, or maybe it's a simple enough one, we might be able to use the trace function and get good results with it. But we're going to use some of the tools that we learned today and try to retrace this monkey, or at least do part of it. So first and foremost, with the bitmap right here, I like to lock it. what I'll do is I'll right-click on it and I'll lock the object. And that way, as I'm drawing, I'm not going to affect anything. You can see me clicking all over this guy, and it's not letting me do anything until I right-click, and then I would unlock that object to be able to access it again. Next, I'll go into wireframe, which would be View. In wireframe, I've got my shortcut key of Alt-W, and that way I can say the differentiating areas in it, and it's not as in my face as it was before with the different colors, and sometimes it's hard to tell the lines I'm working with. So the way I look at this here, and a lot of people get nervous when they first start looking at things, is yes, it's a cute little monkey, but it's a bunch of shapes. I've got a circle that goes right here. I've got another circle that's been edited here. I've got an oval there, an oval here, here, a couple circles there, an oval. And this one I'll actually cheat. I'll use a line going across, and then I'll convert it to an object. So let's see if we can get some basics done on this guy before we run out of time here. So the way I would start with this is the main portion of the face. It's kind of like looking at it for layers. And you can say either working from the back to the front or the front to the back. On this one, I'm kind of starting in the middle because I don't want to do the eyes just yet. I want to do the main portion of the face. So go over to our ellipse tool, and I'll hold Control and Shift, and we'll get a circle started here, something close. And then I'll drag it to the bottom, and I'm looking at where it lines up here. I can see it right there. And then I'll drag these guys out, and I'll hold the Shift so I get it fairly close there. And then I'll just take this top portion and drag it down. We're pretty close, but I need to drag these two sides in now to get it even with it. And that's not too bad. Maybe just a hair out. And I'll drag it out a bit so I can get a good handle on it and drag it right to there. That's pretty close to the outside of it and good enough for what we're doing today. So that's the main portion of the face there. Now what I'm going to do with the secondary portion of the face is I'm going to make another circle from the first one, and then I'm going to edit it to get this curve that's going around the inside of the monkey's face. So we'll do Control-C and Control-V. And the second oval here, I'm going to convert it to curves because I need to add some points and edit it. So right up here, Control-Q or Convert to Curves. I'll zoom in on it right here, and I want to point right there. So I'll add a node. So I'll double-click right there, and I've got a node. And that will come across to the corresponding on the other side, add a node. Now we'll take this top one and drag it down to here. And let's see, we'll take and delete that node there. Nope, I'm going to leave that one. I'll add a node right about here and right about here. And I'll drag these guys up. And now this node here, see how it's proportional. We've got these lines going across, and I can see up here that it's in smooth mode, but I want this to go to cusp. Because what I'm going to do, oops, I went the wrong way with this. I can see a mistake, so I'm hitting Control-Z a couple times. What I'm going to do is I've got those two nodes back here. I went back to that point, and let's drag, we'll leave that one there, and we'll drag this guy up. It might be a little bit easier. So we'll drag this one up to the top. Hopefully I'm not confusing you guys too much. I'll add a node here and bring it over, and add a node here and bring it over, somewhere about there. And I'm going to take this one to a cusp. Right now it's in that smooth mode, and I'll go right next to it to cusp. Cusp allows me to take this portion right here and take that one handle, and we'll drag it around, and that's why I changed it. I wanted to come from the bottom up because it's a little bit easier for me to make this cusp here. And we'll do the same on this one, the cusp, and we'll drag it up so we get that nice sharp corner there. I'm not worried about everything being exact quite yet, so we'll move this guy around, and this one's in that smooth mode right there, and there's symmetrical mode as well. But I'm going to just smooth it out a little bit, maybe drag it over here because it's a nice smooth line on that. This one will start getting that shape going. Drag it over somewhere about here and see if we can get that. And you see how the dotted lines are moving a little bit for me there, and I can see where everything's going. So I'll drag that around. Not too bad, but I think I'm going to have to bring this one over a little bit and turn it maybe like that and pick my spot along here to where I can get things just about where I want it. That one's pretty good. So we'll move this guy back a little bit and see if I can smooth that in. Not too bad overall. So we're getting a little bit of the shape around the monkey here. I've got his face portion right there, and then the the different color for the front of his face and the portion within here. And now I want to draw the eyes, the nose, and the ears, and we'll finish out with this right here. So let's start off with the eyes. These are pretty simple. A couple of circles. So I'll come down here and I'll hold Control and Shift. We'll get it right about where we want it. Zoom in on that a little bit, maybe bump it up there, drag it out just a little hair, knock it over a little bit. We don't have to be exact for what we're doing today. Oops, I went too far. Right about there, that's nice. And to bring this out a little bit, well, it'd be a lot easier for me to use one of the tools I showed in the last webinar, the contour tool. So we'll go to this one and we'll bump it outside. I've got 0.04. Let's see if that hits it. Nope, needs to be a little bit further. So we'll bump it out to 0.08. That's pretty darn close, maybe 0.07. And I like the way that looks. Okay. And if I'm editing this one, and you see it's not quite equal with the top, I go back to my shaping on this, and I drag this up, it's going to do it to both of them at the same time, the inner and the outer portion. So I've got that eye pretty nice right there. What I'll do is as I drag it across, I'm holding the Shift key so it keeps it in line. So it's not in line right now. As soon as I hold that Shift key, it draws it in line. I get it about placed where I want on the other side, and as I'm still holding it with the left key, the left mouse key, I right-click, and it makes a copy of it and places it right there. So now we've got the shape of our face, the forehead kind of line, both of our eyes, and now let's do the nose. So again, we'll go to the ellipse, and on this one, we're going from the center out. So I'm drawing an ellipse, get kind of the nose shape right there. That one was real simple. And then let's look at the ears here. Well, with the ears, maybe we'll do this a little bit differently. We'll kind of draw this guy out. Let's get somewhere close to it. And we've drawn an ear, and we'll drag this down. Maybe bring this over a little bit and bring this guy over. And now with it selected like that, I'll click on it again, and I can rotate it. So we'll get it rotated, bring it in there. That's not too bad at all right there. And maybe bring this up a hair and bring this guy over. Oh, nope, I don't want to do that. So we'll leave it right there, because if I was bringing it over, I'm dragging all that with it, and I don't want to do that. Maybe bump this down a little bit and over, and then we'll bring this up. And you'll see why I'm doing all this in just a second here. Now we'll convert this to curves, and with it as curves, I'll go to my node edit, and I can take this node right here and drag it down to right about there. And that's not too bad at all. We're fairly close on our lines. I could play around with this maybe a little bit in there. Let's come down and zoom in here. And let's see about, I'm not worried about what's behind the face in here, because we'll use our weld and trim tools, those shaping tools later on, to get rid of that if we wanted to. I could make a point in here by double-clicking on the line, and I could do whatever I want with this portion in here. I could make this right-click and make it to a line if I wanted to. Oops. All right, let me delete that guy out, and then I can right-click on this into line. You see it put it to a line. But what did it do here? It adjusted that one because this point here wasn't a cusp. If we go to that one, we can see that it's not a cusp. It's in that smooth mode. So we'll just leave it as is. I hit Control-Z to put it back. Well, I've got one ear done right now. I've got the main portion of the face, the nose, and the two eyes. What I can do with this one ear here is, because it looks like it's pretty much the same on this side, is I'll left-click and start to drag it across while holding my Shift key. And when I get it right about where I want, I'll right-click, and that drops it in there. And then we'll come up here to our mirror tool. So we'll mirror it horizontally, and that's pretty darn close. Close enough for what I want. So we've got that guy right in there. And just bumped it over here on it. So we've got the face, two ears, nose, and eyes. We need the mouth, and we need these little pieces right here for the portion of the ear. So let's try this. We'll do an ellipse on this one. Actually, I'm going to use the 3-point ellipse because I want it at an angle. So I'll go to my 3-point ellipse. I'll draw it there. Come to here and bring it out a little bit. That's about right. And what I'm going to do with this guy is we'll move it down a little bit because I want that upper portion in there. So right about there. I'll drag this side out just a hair so we can kind of get on the lines. And now we can start going into the nodes on it and editing nodes and taking nodes out or in. We'll take this one and bump it in a little bit. We'll drag this, grab this guy and we'll drag it out a little bit. And that didn't do what I wanted, so maybe we'll take this and make it to a cusp. So it's independent, and I can draw this one out a little bit there. And then this one here, we'll right-click and make that to a cusp. And now I can draw this portion here out, and that's not too bad on that. That's got my little ear portion there. And again, I can do some trims and everything. Well, this looks pretty sharp right there, and I don't like the way that looks. So to smooth this portion out, the trick that I do is I go back to my node editing. I'll add an anchor node here, an anchor node here, and then we'll delete this guy in between, and you see how it kind of smoothed it out in between those two. I can even adjust it a little bit more if I wanted to. So that is pretty nice right there. I'm happy with that. And again, I'll take the Shift key as I'm dragging it across. I'll get it about where I want and right-click. So I've added it there, and we'll mirror it once more. And we'll zoom in on this guy and see if we can place it right about the same point. There we go. And I could even this up, see how the line goes right there on the face. We could go back to this one here and grab that in and maybe bring that in a little bit. But you see how I've adjusted a couple things all together. So it's important when you're drawing this guy to make sure that you're following all the lines. And I was going a little fast for that. So we've got the ears, we've got the shape of the face, our eyes, our nose, and let's do the mouth right here. So the mouth, the smiley face right here, the easiest way I think to do this is we'll use our Bezier tool, and I'll grab and put a point right there. I'll grab and put a point right here, and I'll kind of curve this out, and then I'll put a point up in here. So I've got a curve going across there, and I could edit this thing a little bit, take this point there and maybe drag it out a bit, get it somewhere where it looks pretty good on there. And now this is just a liner though. Now we need to go back to our enhanced view for a second and change that line. We'll go to Object Properties and we'll go to the outline one on it. I could have gone up here as well. And we're going to bump that outline out a little bit. Let's make it like a 4-point. 4 points not too bad, but you notice how the ends of it are chopped. They're just flat across. So I'll change my end the way the round cap works, and I'll round that out. That looks nice to me. But if we go back to our wireframe view, you can see it's still just a line across there because the outline is a property of that object. It's not its own object. So on this one, I'm going to go to Range, Convert Outline to Object, and you can see now it's that whole shape on there. So now I could adjust it in a little bit and in there, but I'm pretty happy with the way that looks on that. So now that we've got all the objects together, we need to start trimming them up and kind of filling them in with color. So I'm going to take everything I have here and drag it to the side or up above it. And you can see what we've got going on with this. Oh, I'm right into the other graphic there, so we'll bring it to the side over here. Okay. And we'll go back to our enhanced view. And I can see that I've got a lot of interlacing lines, and these are still a contour group. See, it's a control ellipse on there, so we'll convert that to curves. And that's a control curve right there. And we'll break that guy apart. Let's see if I can get these two apart. And break them apart by using Control K, and now each one can be done independently. And that was supposed to be black on the inside and then white on the outside with no outline. So we'll make that white and take away the outline. And you won't be able to see anything in there because I haven't filled in the back, which now I can take that main circle right there that went all the way around. Let's make sure we got the right one. We do. And I want that to be this color right here. So on my Fill tool over here in the Object Properties, I'll do Fill, and I'll take my eyedropper tool and I'll select this color right here. So I've made it the same color as that. On this portion up here, again, use the Fill tool, use the eyedropper, and we'll pick that darker color so we're getting closer. I don't want any outline on that. And then I need the other eyeball here. Again, break that curve apart. I can go to Arrange and convert it to curves, and then once it's to curves, we can go to Arrange and break it apart, or Control K. So we'll select that guy there. No outline. Oops, I still don't have them broken apart, do I? There we go, break contour group apart. So we'll take the outer one, right-click for no outline, fill it with white, and the other one we'll fill it with black. The nose we'll fill it with black. And we're starting to shape up like the monkey. It's just starting to look a lot better there. And one of those, I saw a little black line down there, so I could tell one of them had a black outline, so we'll remove that. Now on the ears, I want the inner portion right here to be that color. So we'll go to our fill tool, pick the color, and go to there, and right-click on one of these X boxes over here for no fill. And I could do a number of different things. I could trim it out, or I could just layer everything within this. Let's take the ear here first, and we're going to go with that darker color. So fill, go with the darker color of the ear, so it's a little darker, and right-click. And here's a neat trick too. Let's arrange it to the back of the page. Arrange, order to back of page, and now it's behind the rest of it there. We can see it. And what I want to do is I want to make this a shade darker. So I can hold down my Shift key and go over to the black here while I've got that selected. And, oops, Control key, I'm sorry. And start adding a little darkness to it or adding a little lightness to it by hitting the white. So you can adjust that color by holding the Control key and going to the darker or lighter. But we're going to put it back to where it was before. That's fine on that. And then this ear, I want it behind this portion here, this little lobe piece. I don't think that's quite at the color I want it to. So let's try this again. We'll go to that color. There we go. So this one, I'm going to go to Arrange and Order and Behind, and now I select this object, and you can see it's behind there. But I'm still not behind this portion here. So again, I need to Arrange, Order, Behind, and we'll select this one, and now it's kind of hidden down behind it there. So we can do that whole thing again over here. We'll do the fill for it. Select the ear color. We'll match it to this one. And no outline. Oops. Right click, not left click. Right click does your outline. Left click does your fill. This one we'll do fill and select, and we'll do to the ear over there. And right click on no outline. So we're getting pretty close here. And then we'll take these two and move them, arrange in order to back of page, and now it's behind everything that's there. So now we've got that monkey redrawn, and say I want to do that gray area that goes around the outside of it like this. So what I can do then is use my boundary tool, creates a boundary that goes around it. Oh, and I made a mistake there. What did I do here? It's got the line isn't quite intersecting there. So I would want to use my weld and trim functions in between all of them. Let's move him so we can see this a little bit better. I'll move this guy, I'll right click and unlock it and move it down, and then move him over to the center of the page. And we can work with our other tools to either weld all this, trim all the individual pieces in there, but I see I'm running real short on time here, so I'm not going to get real in depth on this. But you guys can see how using the different tools with the different ellipses and the node editing and the shaping, and we can draw a monkey that I'll draw anything really that's just a series of different shapes in between it. So this was the original, the bitmap, and then the one that we redrew from it. And not too bad overall. So we'll move these up to the center of the screen. So hopefully that explained a bunch of it for you guys. And let's see what questions we have left, because we're really running out of time. I tend to be a little wordy on these things. I want to come back over to the presentation and make sure we hit it. Use the skills we learn. And oops, boy, I'm just hitting buttons all over the place. So what do we have for questions, Jody?
Actually, I just had one come in since the last Q&A. Do you find it easier to duplicate the circle and then edit it as opposed to using the pen tool to trace it, and if so, why?
I prefer to duplicate it and edit it, and I think that really boils down to just personal preference. I could have used the pen tool to draw the new one or to draw the line around there and everything. For me, I learned a long time ago to work with shapes and to edit those shapes after I've duplicated it like that. So that's just faster and easier for me. And I was kind of taking a little bit of time when I did this with you guys. I'm usually quite a bit faster than this, so I would have been kind of zipping through and using some more of the shortcuts on the keyboard and such. So that's just a personal preference on that. No other questions?
Well, I did want to remind everybody, maybe I don't really see any more questions coming in, but I did want to remind, I've had a few people ask that if this is recorded, and all of our sessions are recorded. And what I'll do is you can always view them under the archive section in the greatgarmentgraphics.com tab. And we also post a post-webinar blog under the blog tab at greatgarmentgraphics.com as well. And I think I will ask Stephen if he can include a link in order to download the bitmap of the monkey if you want to
Sure, absolutely. We
practice on your own. And I will also include a link to the first session in case you missed the first session. And there you will also be able to view the second session and anything else that Stephen wanted to add or link you to, or any videos that he may find helpful, you'll find right in there. So it's really helpful to come to greatgarmentgraphics.com, sign up for our blog, and then that way you'll just receive it right in your inbox. And you can also feel free to add any questions or comments anytime during viewing, and we'll get those answered for you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jody. We appreciate that. I will provide that bitmap so you guys can play around with it and try to duplicate it on your end. Remind everybody, April 23rd is going to be the next session for CorelDraw, and that one's going to be working with text. And I think I may do a couple smaller videos in between on all this as well that allows people to see some of the other functions within it. So our next webinar, though, is, I believe, the 28th coming up. What would that be, this Thursday?
Yes, that's this Thursday.
Yep, this Thursday. I lose track of the days right now.
That's okay.
If you guys have any comments or questions or ideas for videos, please send them my way. You can always visit imprintables.com or contact me directly at steven@imprintables.com. And both my phone numbers are up there, the main line for us and then my direct line. So love to hear from you guys out there, and like to see you all at the next session.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephen. And just to reiterate, if you want to sign up for the blog at greatgarmentgraphics.com, Stephen will possibly, probably send you some videos or some things to practice in between this session and next to keep you, what's the word? Fresh for next month's session. Thank you so much for joining us, Stephen, because, I actually do this. I have my Corel up, and I try to follow you as well,
really?
because I need to learn Corel too. And so I'm just really grateful that you do a really good job teaching, because I'm already learning so much in these last two sessions.
Glad to help out. And looking forward to having everybody at the next session and on down the line. And we'll get you all closer to being Corel experts by the end of the year.
Great. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks for having me, and thanks to everybody out there. See you at the next one.